Let's look now at what type of modifications we can make to this if we edit it. So first thing I'll do, well, I could do two things. I could go into Edit Page, or you'll notice in SharePoint you can just choose Modify Shared Web Part to modify a specific web part. We don't need to add web parts at this point. And what I'd like to do here is just make some modifications to this builder screen. Now if you look over here, this is the web part right here. Here's the batch view web part. But if we scroll over, you can see that there is a builder screen that's used for configuring that web part. And here are the changes I'd like to make. Let me go ahead and enable a pre-configured search, which means it's going to enable this to to do a search that's not one of the ad hoc searches you just saw me demonstrate. I think what I'll do is I'll look at yesterday to yesterday plus 4 hours using the time syntax there. We're going to do a search for unit batches, same as we did before. What I'm going to be looking for is any completed batches in the cake making unit. Cake making unit is what provided the filling for the cheesecakes. So we'll look only for completed batches. And since I know something about this, I can specify that only batch IDs that contain the word cake are going to be returned. Now, I'm going to ignore a few things for right now. We're not going to do any kind of fancy filtering at this point, but there is a filter option. I will go ahead and specify what I'd like to show in the results. I'd like to show the batch ID. I'd like to show the unit in which we made the product. Let's go with the start time and the end time. And finally the product. There we go. There's the product. And we could also add something like the procedure or the recipe. Those are just attributes of the batch. Now you'll notice that this is something that you can apply right now and see the results. I'll go ahead and choose Apply. And over here we should see some results show up. There we go. Now you can see we're starting to see some results there. I'm not finished yet though. There's a couple of other things I'd like to do. Let me specify. I don't really want to look at that search interface in my results. So let me specify that we're going to disable that search interface from the results. Okay. And the other thing I may want to add, let me just do some formatting here and add under appearance, we're just going to add the name of this particular unit. This is going to be called the cake unit. And when we're done here, when I'm all ready, I can go ahead and click on OK. Now clicking on OK is going to return us out of that builder screen. And as you can see, here is my unit. It no longer shows that search screen. That's what I disabled. And it shows us the search results. So these are hard-coded search results here. The nice thing about this, though, is if I'm looking at things that are relative to the current time, each time you bring this up, it'll be relative to the current day or the current time. Now you can also sort these products, as you can see, or sort these results by choosing product, procedure, start time, end time, etc. Different ways. Just clicking on each one of these headings will sort those. Of course, it's kind of an anticlimax here because almost everything is in the proper order already. But if I did need a different order, if I did want to specify a different order, I could do that here. Here's that same RtBatchView web part, and what I'd like to do is add another web part. This is going to be an RtTreeView web part, and with the tree view I can navigate through the different modules in our module database. The modules in this case will be pointing to the different components within our cheesecake factory. So for example, I have a module that points to the cake maker and another module for the crust maker. And what we'll do is we'll pass from that tree view control to this batch table control the unit name, and in that way we'll be able to, through a connection to the batch table, we'll be able to search for just certain batches that are associated with that specific unit, the cake unit, the crust unit, etc. So without any further ado, let me go into Edit Page, and I will add the RT tree view. So we'll start from scratch here. I think I'll add that web part over here. So we'll add a web part. The web part's going to be our, it's called RT tree view. It's part of the RT web parts. Here it is right here. Go ahead and add that. And then I'll configure that so that it points to our Cheesecake Factory model. Okay, right now it's not configured, so I have to go out and configure it. We go ahead and choose Edit, Modify Shared Web Part. And I should have a Browse option here. Yeah, there it is. I should have a Browse option that allows me to browse to specify some of these things that you see right here, the root node of the tree and the default selected node. So let's start with the root node. Browse, using this module database browse option here. Browse to the proper part of my module database, in this case the Cheesecake Factory. And as we saw when I described the Cheesecake Factory using that that illustration, here are the three units: cake unit, crust unit, and super cake maker. So we'll go with the super cake maker. That's the one we've been using so far. Or actually, we'll go with this is my root that I want to specify here. The root's going to be cheesecake, and then I'll specify super cake maker as my default module. So I'll choose that for my root node. And the way I specify that is I just drag this over and drop it right there. And then for the default node, I will drag this and drop it right there. The super cake maker. I can leave these blank for right now. And when I go ahead and apply this, you should see that what we have now is a, well, it's a tree view that navigates through that hierarchy. Here's the hierarchy. Now what I would like is for when I select these units, I would like that through a connection of the web part to specify what my search criteria is over on this batch view. So in order to do that, I need to set up a connection, and we'll do that in the next video. To make a connection between this RT tree view and this RT batch table, well, I can do it a couple of ways. I can go to either the batch table, RT batch table, or the RT tree view and choose connections. Let me show you a very common mistake though. I'm going to exit out of edit mode. What you'll notice is when you're not in edit mode, when you're not designing your web part page, you'll notice that that option just simply doesn't show up. There is no connections option here. Probably one of the single most common mistakes we see our students make in class. So always make sure you're in the option or in the mode where you're editing this page before you try to make these connections. Again, I'll go ahead and I've just switched over to edit mode. And now I'm in the position to go in here and say, okay, in the RT tree view, I'm going to make a connection. The connection is to provide parameters. That's, in this case, that's the faster mechanism. It's all going to be client side to provide parameters to, well, as you can see, cake unit. Cake unit is the name of this batch view control here, RT tree view or RT batch table control. So I will provide, let me do that again. I'll provide parameters to the cake unit. Now, once I've established that connection, we're not finished yet. We need to go into this cake unit. We need to modify it and specify how we're going to retrieve those connections, what we're going to do with them. So I'm going to go ahead and modify this. And the way I would like to use this is, as you see right now, I'm not specifying any particular unit name, and I'd like to specify that by means of this connection. So I'll go ahead and specify I'll go ahead and click on this little lightning bolt here. That's going to allow me to find the attribute from the RT tree view that we're interested in retrieving. And in this case, I'm going to specify that we get the module name. So from the RT tree view, we'll get the module name. That's going to supply us with the unit name for this search. So the grand finale to this is that Actually, the grand finale, if I don't make any changes, is it's going to fail miserably. Yeah, let's see. This is probably going to return no results. Let me see if any of you can guess what my mistake was. Yes, notice as I switch from one to the other, it's trying to search for things, but it's only going to find things if I choose the cake unit. When I choose the super cake maker or the crust unit, it's not going to find anything. Well, if you give up, let me show you my mistake. Let me modify this shared web part again. I forgot to change my search criteria for the batch ID. So right now, it's continuing to look for a batch ID with the word cake in it. So let me remove that. And in this way, it's not going to be searching only for batch IDs with the word cake in it. And in that way, it should find all of the units between that start and end time, all of the batch records, I should say, all of the batch records that match whatever I've chosen in the in this web part here. I'll exit edit mode. And when I exit edit mode now, you should be able to see that when I select, there we go, as I select different units here, it's going to go ahead and update this. There we go. It's updating the batch RtBatchTable to show just the batches for that unit. So there's the cake unit batches. If I select crust unit, we'll see only the crust unit batches. And when I select SCM, there we go, it'll show only the super cake maker. So it's more of the connections that we've seen previous to this in other, in using other web parts. So it's the same type of connections, and it's not much of a step from here to being able to add things like trends, such that when I select one of these units, that will provide the start time and the end time for a trend or for an RT table. So we're looking at just data from that particular batch. So just to demonstrate here the power of making those connections between the different web parts.